Mendy, Azimov. After.
Okay, so as is custom, we take a halachic subject related to the parsha, and we will begin right away with number one. Number one is a quote from the Gemara in Psachim, and the Mishnah in Psachim says that the men of Yericho, when they would say Shema, Korchen es Shema, they would bundle together the Shema. They would make a sandwich out of the Shema. So that's what the Mishnah says, and the Gemara brings a Braisa, and that's how our paper begins. Number one, Toner Abanon, Keitzad hoyu Korchen es Shema. What does it mean that the men of Yericho would bundle the Shema, make a sandwich out? What does that mean? So, they would say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. They would say Shema. V'loi hoyu mafsikin, there was no hefsik. There was no hefsik. Divrei Rab Meir, that's what Rab Meir says. That's an enigmatic statement. What in the world does Rab Meir mean? Does he mean that when they said Shema, they weren't mafsik between one word and the next? They would just say, Shema Yisrael Hashem, they would bundle the whole pasuk together? Maybe that's what he means. Or maybe he means they weren't mafsik between Shema and what comes after. Well, what comes after? In the Psukim, we have the Ahavta. We know that we say Boruch Shem. The Gemara will introduce that soon. But at this point, maybe Rab Meir means they went from Shema straight to Vahavta without saying Boruch Shem. Maybe that's what he means. They would say Shema, and then they would not interrupt between Shema and the next. In the Chumash, it goes from Echad to Vahavta in Parshas V'eschanon. It's the next word. Maybe loy hoyu mafsikin means they did not interject Baruch Shem. Or maybe it means loy hoyu mafsikin means you're supposed to pause after the word echad to whatever it is you say next. Maybe that's what it means. Rashi, in fact, learns another way completely. Loy hoyu mafsikin is you're supposed to be mayrich on the word echad, as the Gemara says in Brachos. Kol hamarich be'echad marichin lo yomu v'shnoisav. If you're mayrich in the word echad, the Eibishter pays back arichis yomim.
What does mayrich mean?
To elongate. So that's how Rashi learned. Okay, we'll see. But Rab Meir's statement is definitely enigmatic. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer mafsikin hoyu, they were mafsik. Ela shaloi hoyu Eimer Baruch Shem kveid machusa li'elam voed. Rabbi Yehuda's statement is also funny. No, they were mafsik, but they didn't say Baruch Shem. So if they didn't say Baruch Shem, that means they went straight from Echad to Vahavta. So then, what does it mean they were mafsik? Okay, we'll see. Frek the Gemara. Va'anan my time or minonle. So the men of Yericho, according to Rabbi Yehuda, would not say Baruch Shem. Why do we say it? Could the Dorish Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, like Reish Lakish, gave a drasha Damar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. In this week's parsha, Vayikra Yankov Abana Vayem, Yankov calls his children around his bed, and he says, "Hey, us for gather together, Vagidu lechem, and I will tell you what's going to happen in the end of days." Says Reish Lakish, Bikish Yankov Legalas Labonav Keitza Yamin. Yankov wanted to reveal to his children the end of days. Yamin could mean days, and the nun at the end is just an Aramaic twist. In Hebrew, you would say Yomim with a mem, but Yamin could be an Aramaic twist, or Yamin could be the Eibishter's right hand. That all the suffering the Yidden endured during exile, the Eibishter stands by patiently watching, biding his time, giving the Goyim their moment of glory. And one day the Eibishter will bring back his right hand, and boy will he minister retribution to those Goyim. So could this be the right hand? Okay, either way. V'nistalko mimena shchina, the shchina left him. The shchina left him. We once quoted a word from Reb Shamshin Astropolia, and we have to repeat it again, he says pshatz like this. When Moshe was by the burning bush, he asked Eibishter, the Jews will ask me, what is your name? They'll say, really, God spoke to you? Well, who is he? Well, how did he identify himself to you? Hashem says, my name is Eke, Aleph Hey, and then Yud and then Hey. Gematria 21, which means Ek is going to take us out of Egypt. We went to Egypt because the brothers sold Yosef. That's how we got there practically, and also in Kabbalah it says being in Mitzrayim was to atone for the sin of selling of Yosef. And if Ek releases us, it must be Ek was the one that was damaged by the sale. Which means when the brothers sold Yosef, they damaged the name Ek, which has the gematria of 21. 9 of them sold Yosef, because there were 12 brothers. Reuven wasn't there, as the Medrash and Rashi say. Binyamin wasn't there, Yosef's the victim. 12 minus 3 gets us to 9. So if 9 brothers stain the name Ek, 9 times 21 is 189. So Yankov thought we were going to be in Mitzrayim 189 years. And which year will we leave? In year 190. That's Pshat. Yankov wanted to reveal the Ketz. Ketz is 190. He wanted to reveal that you're going to be here for 189 years, and in the year Ketz, in the year 190, you'll leave. The problem is he forgot something. Nistalko mimena shchina. He didn't realize there was a 10th person involved in the sale of Yosef. Because the Pirkei that Rabbi Lezer says that the brothers wanted to make a chayrim that no one should reveal to Yankov what happened. And there were only 9 of them. So they needed the Eibishter to join the huddle. And the Eibishter became the 10th. He made the minyan man. So that's pshat v'nistalko mimena shchina, that Yankov didn't realize that the Eibishter, the Shechina, was part of the sale, which means you have to wait another, there was another stain in the name Eke. You have to wait another 21 years. It gets us to 210. There were really 10 brothers that sold him, 9 brothers, but the Eibishter is 10. Each one stained Eke, which is the gematria of 21, which gets you to 210 years, which is precisely how long we were there for. That's the famous word of Reb Shamshin of Ostropolia.
Who lived there?
He lived in Ukraine. He was murdered in the Chmelnytsky massacres. For more details, check on the podcast. We had a long shir about it. 1648. He was killed in the 1648. You ever saw the statue, Chmelnytsky statue? It happens to be the Zohar actually gives a different cheshbon. The Zohar says that Yosef was stripped away from his father 22 years, right? We had a whole shir that was corresponding to 22 years. Yankov was away from his father, fine. But the fact is Yosef and Yankov were torn apart 22 years. So the Zohar says each of the Shvatim were responsible for 22 years of pain and anguish. And the Zohar says 10 of them sold him, which means Bapashas were blaming Reuven, or we're blaming Yosef. That's a debate, whichever one. But the fact is you get 10 Shvatim. So the Zohar says clearly, since each one's responsible for 22 years, 10 times 22 is 220. So he should have been in Egypt for 220 years. But since the 10 Shvatim died in Mitzrayim, each of that was an atonement for 1 year. So it ended up being 210. That's what the Zohar says. Interesting cheshbon. I'll call upon him back to our... That's the end of the advertisements. Back to the Gemara. So Yankov says, if the Eibishter has left me, apparently the crowd here is not worthy to hear the prophecy I wanted to tell them. Shem chas v'shalom yesh b'mitasi psul. Maybe in my bed there is a psul ka'avram, like Avram. Sheyotza mimenu Yishmael, famous expression quoted in Chassidus often. Avram yotza mimenu Yishmael. Look what came out of Avram. Yishmael. Avram was a 50-50 success rate. And look at my father Yitzchak. Yotza mimenu Esav. Yitzchak had 2 kids. Also 50-50, he had an Esav. So Yankov was very worried that one of his children was going to, or maybe many of his children, half of his children, God forbid, was going to have a bitter end. The Arizal writes that the 3 of us were masakin the stains of Adam Arishan. And Adam Arishan had sinned in all of the big 3. Adam's aveir of eating from the fruit and then his subsequent zera levatala, it was considered that he violated Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, and Shfichus Dam, the 3 big ones. And the Arizal says that each of the others will come to be masakin one of them. Avraham was to be masakin Gilui Arayos. Yep. And that how he fixed that was Yishmael, who we know Yishmael was big into those things. Yotzim, and he kind of cleansed himself from immorality completely, and he expunged whatever negativity there was, and that was the form of Yotzim and Yishmael. Yitzchak had to be masakin the murder element of Adam. So Esav, who was a Ritzayach, Yitzchak expunged him. Yankov was left to fix Avodah Zarah. That's why after the story of Shem, he tells his whole family, get rid of all the Avodah Zarah. Yankov was worried his whole life. Maybe history is going to reoccur. What happened to my Zayda, what happened to my father, is going to happen to me. And therefore, he's worried over here. Look what he says. He says clearly, he says, he was worried in the Indian of Avodah Zarah that maybe someone doesn't really believe. You see it from the response of his kids. Amalei Bonav, the kid says, no, Shema Yisrael. Listen, Yisrael means our father Yaakov. Hashem Elokein, Hashem Echad. We're big believers. Amr, they said, Kishem she'ein belibcha el echad. The same way you feel of Achdus Hashem, kach ein belibenu el echad. So you see very clearly from their response that Yaakov's concern was that maybe he has the same fate as his Zayd and his father, but in this scenario it'll translate in the form of Avodah Zarah. And they responded, no, we all believe Hashem Echad. So, Ba'isa Shah, Pasach Yankov Avinu Va'amar, Yankov opened his mouth and said, Boruch Shem, Kvoid Malchusa Li'elam Vod. Now there is an important medrash that says Yankov said this quietly. We'll get back to this. In the Gemara, it seems like Yankov said it openly, that the kids should hear. It says Pasach, right? Pasach Yankov Avinu Va'amar. Pasach usually means he opened his mouth and he said it definitely in a form that it could be heard. However, the Medrash Rabbah says Yankov actually said it quietly, and that's significant. So that's the drasha of Rab Shimon ben Lakish. So now he says what the dilemma was. Amri Rabbanan, the Chacham said, Hey Chinav, what are we going to do? Amrinu, so Neimruhu, should we say Baruch Shem every day? Loi Amra Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not a Chumash. Moshe says you got to say Shema. It goes from Echad to Vahavta. You're going to stick in Baruch Shem. Moshe didn't say it. Loi, you're not going to say it, but Yankov said it. His skin, so they were masakin. Shi'oimim has 2 pages. It's 2 pages, so it's a package. We're going to say it b'chashoy quietly. And Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amri Dvei Rabbi Ami, a famous marshal, and Chassidus expounds on this marshal. Labas Melech, there was a princess. She smelled Sikei Kdeira. For a long time, I thought Sikei Kdeira meant the stuff at the bottom of the pot, which is how many explain it. But it actually, Rashi writes a word in Old French, and I saw recently that actually the word just means a very flavorsome stew. It doesn't actually mean the bottom of the pot, which could change the pshat and the mashal. I don't know. It's Old French. It's old. You could check on the punkt on the side of the Gemara that I saw recently. They bring what?
You may know.
Okay. I don't recall the Old French word. We'll bring it. But im toimar, if the princess is going to say she wants to stew, yesh lo gnai, it's embarrassing. So when most people quote the mashal, they say, why it's embarrassing? Because she wanted the stuff stuck at the bottom of the chalent pot. But it could be that's not the pshat at all. The pshat is that be'etzem, a princess to ask for a little bit of stew, she's asking for food. It's not bakovadik for a princess to have to ask. Okay, I'll let you think about that. But loitam, if she's not going to say yesh latzar, she wants the food. So his chilo avadeh lohavi b'chashoy. So her servants would bring it to her still at hate, under the table, unten tish. No one should know. So too over here by Baruch Shem. Amar Rabbi Vo says hiskinu shi'oimim oiser b'kol ra mipnei taremis haminin. In some places, the Apikurim would say, what are you guys saying after Hashem Echad? You're mumbling something before you say V'ahavta, right? We know exactly what you're mumbling. You're mumbling some heresy over there. You're mumbling some other beliefs you don't want people to hear. So you know what we started doing? We started screaming Baruch Shem. People should know. But Ubenardo, in Nardo, a city in Bavel, Delekon Minin, there's no Apikurim. Ad Hashta, until today, we still say it quietly. Okay? And that's the minig, obviously, that we do. This is the Gemara. By the way, when the Gemara is presenting that there seems to be, like a debate between Moshe and Yaakov. As far as Moshe is concerned, you say Hashem Echad v'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, as it's written in Parshas Veschanan. Yaakov Avinu says, no, you got to say Baruch Shem. So how can we do it to make them both happy?
There was no v'ahavta by Yaakov's time. He just said the Shema.
Right. B'chal Yaakov didn't say Shema. It was the kids that said Shema. But when Yankov said Shema, when Yankov met Yosef, right? He was
The question is,
Yosef
why
cried on
didn't
Yaakov.
Take the whole
Right.
piece.
Yeah.
Or the Abish, why didn't he take the whole thing?
The Shvatim weren't the first ones to say Shema. We know clearly when Yankov met Yosef, when he came to Mitzrayim, Yosef fell on Yankov's neck and he cried. Rashi quotes, Yosef cried and not Yankov. Yankov was saying Shema, right? So those words Shema Yisrael were around years before. That was 17 years before this happened. It happens to be, by the way, the Ramban argues on Rashi, he tainas when it says that he cried, it wasn't Yosef crying on Yankov, it was Yankov crying on Yosef. And the Ramban says a heartsick idea that imagine if a kid has been lost from his father for 22 years, the father mourned, cried his eyes out, never stopped. The kid himself is king of the world, right? They finally meet up. Who's going to have tears streaming down his face? The tata or the kid? The father. He says the father. The Gemara says numerous places. The rachmanas of a father on a son is much more, right? B'machteres, someone comes in the tunnel, come into your house. If a father catches the kid robbing the house, the kid might be coming to harm. The other way around, if the father enters the kid house, he's just coming for a can of tuna. He's not coming to harm. Gemara says. But the Ramban says when it says he cried, if you have to choose one, the Ramban says if you imagine the scene, what's Yosef crying for? Is it the kid at the top of the world? Is it the pinnacle of success? Yankov, a broken man, 20. Anyhow, but Al Kopanim, where this debate of Moshe and Yankov, it reminds me, I have to say this, there's we know that the 10 Tanoim that were murdered by the Roman government, the Harugei Malchus, were in place of the Shvatim that sold Yosef. It's a Beferish Medrash, and Medrash Sheicher Tov on Mishlei. The Mukubolim go to town about it. Forget about. Even earlier, Rabbeinu Bechaya, the Dikanti, they all talk about it. And the obvious question is, if only 9 of them sold Yosef, why were the 10 Harugei Malchus? And it's a major discussion, but I just want to say one idea. That the Arizal says lots about it, and not everything he says, he gives many options in various, Reb Chaim Vital is quoting from his Rebbe, in various of the works you'll find various interpretations and explanations. But one of them is that Reuven came back as the Tanur Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, what was his fate? The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah he was taken captive by the Goyim. They wanted to coerce him to convert and to embrace paganism. And mamash, a miracle, he was saved and he got out of their hands. The Arizal says he was a Gilgul of Reuven. So what's the explanation that he suffered such a fate? So the Arizal doesn't... Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. What is the pshat? The pshat's like this. There's a debate between Yaakov and Moshe about Reuven. Fascinating. Yaakov Avinu in this week's parasha tells Reuven, Pachaz kamayim al toisar, because you were swift like water to meddle in your father's affairs by moving his bed, the story in Vayishlach, therefore you won't be better than your brothers. If you look in the Rikanti, Menachem Rikanti, the Rishon, he says like this, Yaakov was telling Reuven, you weren't there by the sale. So really, the 9 brothers were going to come back as the 9 Tanoim murdered by the Romans. You were going to be spared. But because Pachas Kamayim, because you have your own issue under the table, his own sin, the meddling of his father's bed in Parshas Vayishlach, therefore you have to come back too, you're going to join them. So there were 10 Harugei Malchus, 9 of them were for the Shvatim. The 10th was Reuven, who was actually suffering for his own personal issue. That's what the Rikanti says, and that's how he reads the pasuk. Yankov tells Reuven, Pachaz kamayim al toisa, because you were swift like water to meddle into my affairs, and therefore you're not going to be al toisa, you won't be any better off than your brothers. You were going to be, because you weren't there by the sale. The other 9 were going to come back, and you weren't. But now you're coming back too. Here's the issue. In Parshat V'zois HaBracha, Moshe Rabbeinu, what does he say about Reuven? Yechi Reuven, let Reuven live, va'al yomais, let him not die. If you look in Unklus translates that Moshe was saying like this, let Reuven live, u'moise tinyana lo yamus, he should not die a second time. Moshe was saying, let Reuven not die a second time. What does it mean not die a second time? His soul's in heaven. What that meant is Moshe was saying is Reuven should not have to come back and live again. His soul shouldn't have to come back as one of the Tanoim murdered by the Romans. So then you have a debate between Yaakov and Moshe. Yaakov tells Reuven, because Pachas Kamayim, because you were swift like water and you have your own personal sin, mixing the beds, therefore Al Tersi, you're not any better, you're coming back. Moshe says, no! Reuven shouldn't die. Uncle says he shouldn't die a second time. He shouldn't have to come back and die a second time. So what are you going to do? Debate between Yaakov and Moshe. So Reuven comes back as a Rebbe Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. He's thrown into jail. They impress upon him to convert. His life's at stake. You know why? Because Yaakov said it's going to happen to you too. At the nick of time, though, he's spared and he survives. Because ultimately Moshe davened for him. So the story that he went through perfectly mirrors this debate, this discrepancy between what Yankee said, what Moshe said. Anyhow, that was just one.
Shouldn't Reuben have come back as a Gilgul to Shimon Bar Yochai then? Is the only survivor at that time, where everybody else were tortured and killed? I mean, Shimon was the only one.
They were. What do you mean? Shimon Bar Yochai is fakert. He was the only one that was persecuted. The story of Masechta Shabbos, he was the one that was persecuted, not Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Yehuda. When they had that debate over there, Rabbi Yehuda was honored, Rabbi Yossi was exiled.
Persecuted, but he survived.
But he was the only one that was persecuted. The others weren't killed. He's a close. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi weren't. What?
Yossi completely. Galilee.
Right. The Litziperi or Mitziperi, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Litziperi or Mitziperi. Fine. Anyhow, I just threw that in, but the truth is the Gemara is saying there seems to be a debate about Boruch Shem. So what do? We say it quietly. So you want, like, what does that mean? Well, you think if you say it quietly, Moshe's not going to hear? So, like, what was the debate? There's many things we say that Moshe never said. So the Maharsha and the Tzlach, that's the Noidib Yehuda, they learned that we're dealing with a Shaila of Hefsik. Moshe Rabbeinu gave us a mitzvah in the name of Hashem. You got to say Shema. And he says, Shema, Echad, Vahavta. You want to start throwing in other things in the middle? Like, you don't have the authority to do that. It's a Shaila of Hefsik. On the other hand, Yankov did it. So we want to do it. So according to that, what was this answer to do it quietly? If you do, shouldn't it still be a hefsek? Like, what do you gain from doing it quietly? So, okay, there's lots of shilas on this, but we have something specific we want to discuss. Join me quickly in number 3. Number 3 is the Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Kaira, and is quoting Rabbeinu Yonah, who wants to know what was the debate of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda about what they did in Yericho. Remember, Rabbi Meir said that they used to say Shema, and they weren't mafsik. A very enigmatic statement. We don't know what that means. So Rabbeinu Yonah says like this. Rabbeinu Yonah, B'dvarav, his words in the second parak of Brachos, the Rabbi Meir lo hayu mafsikin klal. According to Rabbi Meir, in Yericho, there was no hefsek at all. Bein echad or bein vahavta. They went straight from echad to vahavta. Meaning, lo hayu oimim Boruch Shem. Rabbi Meir agrees they didn't say Boruch Shem. Plus, lo hayu marichim bedalos. That's based on Rashi. Rashi says if you're Mayrich in the Dalet of Echad, that itself is the interruption between Shema and what comes after. If you elongate the last letter of the third pasuk of Shema, the Dalet, then what you're doing is you're kind of separating between that pasuk and what comes after. The reason you want to separate is because Shema is Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shemaim, accepting the yoke of heaven. V'hafta, you're relating all the mitzvahs Hashem gave us. It's a completely different kettle of fish. So you want to be mafsik. Rashi learns mafsik doesn't mean on the watch to wait a few seconds. Rashi learns mafsik is if you elongate that dalad, which is the end of Shema, that itself kind of like wraps up the pasuk of Shema. That itself is the hefsek. Rab Meir says, Rabbeinu Yonah here is within the view of Rashi, that according to Rab Meir, in Yericho, you know what they did? When they said Echad, they did not elongate the dalad. They didn't say Baruch Shem. They went straight to Vahavta. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, no, mafsikin hayu. They did interrupt, meaning they were Mayrich B'Dalet, but they didn't say Baruch Shem. So according to this, both Rab Meir and Rabbi Yehuda agreed there was no Baruch Shem in Yerichai. The shaila is, was there any hefsek? What is the hefsek? Elongating the dalet. Rab Meir says they didn't. Rabbi Yehuda says they did. Okay. The Soiv Rabbeinu says the Beis Yosef about the Tur. The Tur believes the Mekivan, the Chazin, and since we see the Tzarich lahafsek, you have to be mafsek. Ben Kabbalos Malchus Shemaim Dvarim Acherim. We see from this brisa that we just quoted that you're supposed to be mafsik, right, between Kabbalos or Malchus Shemaim and other things, right? That's why Rab Meir screamed, "Oh, they weren't mafsik," and Ruben says, "No, they were, but they didn't say Baruch Shem." But you see, you're supposed to make a hefsik between Kabbalos or Malchus Shemaim and what comes later. So therefore, Lidida, and according to us that we do say Baruch Shem, Tzarich lahafsik between that and V'yahavta. What's going to come out is, in Yericha they didn't say Baruch Shem, but they were supposed to be mafsik between Echad and what comes after, right? We do say Baruch Shem. And Baruch Shem is also accepting the yoke of heaven. So we should be mafsik between the Dalet of Vo'ed and what comes later. But you don't elongate the Dalet of Vo'ed. So how would you be mafsik? You pause. You pause for a moment. Tzarich lahafsik, you have to be mafsik beinoi levahafta, because Baruch Shem for Machusla is part of Kabbalah or Malchus Shemaim. So let's just get that clear. The Beis Yosef is learning according to the Tur. When we say Shema and Baruch Shem, you don't have to interrupt between Echad and Baruch Shem, because it's all Kabbalah or Malchus Shemaim. You have to be mafsik between the end of Baruch Shem and Vahafta, because you see in the Gemara that in Yericha they didn't say Baruch Shem, but they nonetheless needed to divide between Echad and V'yahavta. Between Kabbalah or Malchus Shemaim and the mitzvahs, there needs to be a hefsek. It happens to be that hefsek can be done by elongating the dalet of Echad. Okay, we extrapolate from there that we who do say Baruch Shem, we have to separate between the Vo'ed and V'yahavta. Now, there's no idea of elongating the dalet of Vo'ed. There's no such thing. So the hefsek here would mean literally to pause. Okay. V'horekeach, says Rabbi Yosef Kaira, but there's a rekeach. Rabbi Elazar rekeach, one of the greatest Kabbalists of the Rishonim in Germany, shekosav, you need to make another pause. Between Echad and Baruch Shem. Tzarich lahafsik ben Hashem Echad leBaruch Shem. You have to make a hefsek between Echad and Baruch Shem too. Soiver he holds Baruch Shem K'vod Malchus Olam Vod Einoi Kol Kach Kabbalos Malchus Shemaim K'mei Pasuk Rishon. Baruch Shem is not like Shema, which means according to the Rekech you need to have two pauses between Echad and Baruch.
So you Mayrich?
Now the Chayra
It says one.
No, because he agrees to the Tur that between Void and Vahafta.
But that's what we're doing. Echad.
Okay, so no. Hold on. No. So the Chayra asking a very simple question. Between Echad and Baruch, the hefsek could be being Mayrich. No,
Beside the long that we make a few second two Baruch Shem von Chunaved and then V'afta.
That's זה מה שאתה עושה. מרן בית יוסף לא סובר ככה. No.
So what he said?
No, you don't do. You go straight from Echad to Baruch Shem.
How you do that? Tell me.
Just take away the gap between Echad and Baruch Shem.
No pause.
No pause.
But you elongate the dalet.
Yeah, so that's the shaila that if elongating the dalet is always considered a hefsek, so what's this whole idea of the rekeach? You have to be mafsuk in Echad and Baruch Shem. Everyone is mayrich be'echad. Everyone wants to have a long life, right? So what's this debate? The Beis Yosef is presenting a debate between the rekeach and the Tur. The Tur holds you're only mafsik between void and v'yahavta. The Rekech says, no, you also need between Echad and Baruch, because even between Shema and Baruch Shem, it's not the same thing. Shema Yisrael is the real Kabbalas Malchus Shemaim. Baruch Shem is like a watered-down version. The question is, but we're learning in Rashi that when you're Mayrich in the Echad, that itself is considered a hefsek. Mm-hmm. So then you automatically have a hefsek between Shema and Baruch Shem. So it must be that Rabbi Yosef Kaira is removing himself from Rashi's interpretation, learning that there's another idea. Between Echad and Baruch, you're supposed to pause according to the Rekeach. You're supposed to pause. And that's the debate. The Tur holds you don't pause. Maybe because echad, the being ma'arich and echad itself is enough, like Rashi learns. Baruch Shem, between vod and vahavta, pause. But there must be a debate over here. The Rekeach holds you literally have to pause between echad and baruch. Elongating the echad itself is enough. That's only in Rashi. Apparently Rekeach doesn't hold like that. The Ramah in his commentary on the Tur and the Darchei Moshe just writes a few words. He says, what?
Whether it's counted it's counted as a form or not.
Maybe, could be, yeah, very possible. Very possible, that's true. The Ramah in his Darchei Moshe on this base Yosef, he writes just a few words. He says, if you look in the Avud Raham, Reb David Avud Raham, the great scholar from Spain, he also writes like the Rekeach. You need to be mafsik, literally a pause, a pause in time between Echad and Baruch Shem.
2 seconds.
Yeah,
That's it.
even a second,
Now we know
a
the
full
title,
second.
The
Is
title of the shir was The Mystery of Baruch Shem.
Oh, I'll say. Now, okay, so we're going to see some fascinating things about this. Okay, you'll see in Mitzvah Shem things will all become clear soon. Look at number 4. You think you got the history of Baruch Shem? Nah. The story we saw in number 1, that's one opinion. In number 4 is the Tur in Hilchas Yom Kippur. V'noigen ba'Ashkenaz, the minig in Germany. To say Baruch Shem b'kol ram on Yom Kippur, you say it out loud. V'smach l'dover is in Medrash in Eila Hadvarim Rabbah, in Medrash Rabbah on Dvarim in Parshas Veschanon. Kishala Moshe, when Moshe went to heaven, he heard the Malachim praising Hashem Baruch Shem K'vemechusel Vod. V'Hayrida l'Yisrael, Moshe brought it down to us, and it gives a mashal the Mo'ad Dover Doime la'Adam she. There was a Ganav Hurman. There was a guy who was in the palace and he stole some the crown jewels. Pirush chayfetz na mitach paltrin shel melech. He stole some expensive item from the king's palace. It's probably jewelry because it says he gave it to his wife. So let's assume it's some crown jewels. And he tells her, "Al tiskashti boy, do not wear it. Elabitz only in private. Basically in your house. Because if you wear it outside, oh boy." So therefore, kol Hashanah, the whole year we say Baruch Shem quietly. Well, b'Yom HaKippurim we say it publicly because we ourselves are like angels. Which means that the angels, I guess, aren't jealous of us because we're like men of the palace. You know, we belong wearing those jewelry because we're like palace people ourselves. So it sounds like a completely different story of Baruch Shem. It's a completely different, and not just that. There's simple nafkaminas. According to the Gemara in Psachim, it's only an issue when you say Shema. According to the Gemara Psachim, it's only an issue when you say Shema. Don't say Baruch Shem out loud. Moshe didn't say it. But when you say Baruch Shem, let's say by Ona B'Koyach, we say every day. When you say Baruch Shem after saying a bracha levatala, right? Whenever you say Baruch Shem out of the context of Shema, as far as the Gemara in Psachim, not a problem. You don't have the issue that Moshe didn't say it. We say tons of things Moshe didn't say. It's only an issue in Shema. Because like a hefsuk, like the Tzlach and the Marsha said. But anywhere else is not a problem. According to the Medrash of the Tur quotes, you can never say Baruch Shem out loud, right? It's always you're going to cause jealousy of the Malachim. Conversely, on Yom Kippur, when you say Shema, right? According to the Gemara, you shouldn't be allowed to say it out loud. It's part of Shema. Right? In other words, if you follow the Gemara, you have a big heter, that as long as it's not Shema, you could say Baruch Shem out loud. But when it's in Shema, even on Yom Kippur, how could you say it out loud? Moshe didn't say it, right? So there's major nafkaminas between the two.
The story that Moshe heard it up there was they just said it, or
The Malachim.
Shema?
That's how they. No, nothing to do with Shema.
Just said Baruch.
Yeah. Listen, the Beis Hamikdash, the Yidden would say Baruch when they would hear the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, right? They said Baruch Shem. It wasn't in the context of Shema. Did they say it out loud? Did the Yidden say it in the Beis Hamikdash? Right? Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. Did they say Baruch Shem out loud or quietly?
When we made
They said it loud.
Right. Well, Baruch Shem's an old thing, right? Yankov said Baruch
So
Shem.
how did Moshe take it from Shemayim and add it to Shema?
No, not the hold on. But why don't you ask a question? The Gemara in Psachim says Yankov came up with Baruch Shem. Yankov came up with it. What do you mean the Tur says that Moshe heard it from the angels, he brought it down? Right. Moshe should say, Yankov said it years ago. It's Alta Maisa.
No, Yaakov
Hold on,
maybe
it gets
also.
it gets even better. Look at number 2. Number 2 is the tshuva of the Tashbeit. Reb Shimshon Bar Tzemach Doron. He was probably the last of the Rishonim. He was in Spain, and then the 1391 pogroms in Spain, he went south to Algeria. He was buried in Algeria, and he wrote the Tashbeit. How long did he live?
He had a long life, or
Out of the 60s, 70s, maybe. Somewhere around there.
For that.
V'chein bozeh, he passed away in the 1430 somewhere. V'chein bozeh ha-medrash, dorshu shem shishim tevis. Number two. Somebody asked the Tashbeit that it's brought that there's 60 words in the first parsha of Shema, and if you count it, you don't get 60. So the Tashbeit, or he's known as the Rashbatz, he answers back that if you say Boruch Shem twice, you get 60. Al pi regilusam, because the custom way back was to lichbol, to repeat Boruch Shem Kved Malchusa. You ever heard that? When it comes to saying Shema, the Gemara said if someone says Shema twice, meshashkenoi, so you throw tomatoes, and not fresh tomatoes, rotten tomatoes at him, because it seems like as if there's two kingdoms in heaven. Meshashki can't say it. And all of a sudden over here, no, the minhag was to say Baruch Shem twice. K'moish on a koiflin, just like we say it twice on Yom Kippur. And in Aseres you made tshuva. B'soich divrei tachnunim, when we supplicate. When we say Chatanu Shema Baruch, okay, whatever that minhag was, in Aseres you made tshuva.
Say it 3 times. I thought.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah. I don't know exactly what the minhag over here was, Venira, he says, you know why koiflin? You know why they used to say Baruch Shem twice? Lefi shaloi omre Moshe. Moshe didn't say it. Only Yankiv, like it says in Psachim. The Kivon, and since shaloi omre, since Moshe didn't say it, ulai yizalzelu boy, the people might belittle it. Therefore, we say it twice. Dafka, because Moshe didn't say it, al kei no, you were given to say it twice, l'chav boy, to cherish it. And then then he throws in a whopper from left field. Ulefishu kill, since it's a praise. Then when the Mekalsim, the Malachim Tashem, V'sham Mazeh Yankiv Ba'aloisei B'mara Hanavua B'sulam. You know where Yankiv got Baruch Shem?
Also from Allah.
Yeah.
He was up there.
In the dream, in the Parshas Vayetze, by the dream. By the dream, exactly. He heard the Malachim praising the Eibishter. And he says, V'shem Gam Heimo Yakoif, maybe they themselves, that's how the Malachim used to say it. So Al Kain, therefore, on Oimim Oisa, we say it belachash, we say it quietly. Shelo Yiskanu Bar, Moshe shouldn't be envious of us. Avo b'Yom HaKippurim, we're like Malachim, and therefore we say it out loud. Okay, so he ends up similar to the Torah in Yom Kippur, you say it out loud, but nothing to do with Moshe. And Yankiv heard it in his dream on the ladder, he heard the Malachim saying it. Yankiv himself decided we should do it quietly. Now there's the exact same thing the Torah says about Moshe. The marshal of the Ganav in the palace that Moshe said, I stole it from Malachim, let's keep it hush-hush. Yankiv made that very decision. Let's keep it hush-hush, because he took it from the Malachim. In fact, I told you that in the Medrash Rabbit says that in the story that's written in Psachim, that Yankiv around his bed, when his children said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad, Yankiv said, Baruch Shem quietly. It says in Medrash Rabbit, Yankiv himself said it quietly. According to the Tashbeit, it makes sense, because Yankiv knew about the peril. He himself knew that he took it from the Malachim. So, is this all one story? Like, once you have the Tashbeit, it's almost like the story, it's all one story. Yankiv got it from the Malachim, and therefore he said it quietly.
Psachim doesn't even say the quiet. He says the hefsek.
Yeah, but the way the Medrash Rabbah quotes the story is that Yankiv himself said it quietly. So it's interesting. What we do is we really follow Yankiv. We're not making, according to the Medrash, we're not making a pshara between Yankiv and Moshe. We're following Yankiv. We say it quietly. Look at the Magen Avraham in number 5. It's a very important Magen Avraham in the laws of Yom Kippur, where he wants to make all these medrashim. He doesn't quote the Tashbeitz, but as far as the Tur in number 4 and the Psachim number 1, he wants to amalgamate it. What's the word? Yeah, he wants to line it up together. He says in number 5, B'kol Ram, Mishum she'b'chol Hashana, we say it belachash, quietly, because Moshe ganva mimalachim, like the Tur says in Yom Kippur, Moshe stole it from the angels. Ava b'Yom Kippur, Gam Yisrael doimin l'malachim, we're like angels, fine. I, v'had the Kostav and Simon Samach in the laws of creation, it says, Name should we say it, Moshe didn't say it. Koloimer, he says, Loi kosva b'toyra latznim mipnei malachim. Says the Magen Avraham, number 1 and number 4, they fit together. Do you know why?
Didn't put it in there.
Do you know why Moshe didn't put it in the Chumash? That's how he was keeping a secret from the Malachim.
So he's reconciling that.
Exactly. Exactly. In other words, in number 1 it says we say it quietly because Moshe didn't say it. In number 4 it says we say it quietly because it's stolen from the Malachim. It's the same thing. The reason that Moshe didn't put it in the Chumash, he didn't want to reveal it because that's how he kept it quiet.
He also said
So you see that the Magen Avraham is trying to fuse
Why
together.
does that have anything to do with Yaakov? Yaakov, I thought, stole it from the Malachim.
That's what it says in number 2. That's the Tashbetz. The Magen Avraham is not
How
quoted.
is he fixing the...
No, he's not fixing everything. He's fixing the 2 main sources.
So he doesn't fix the
The
one
Tashbetz,
Yaakov.
yeah, that he doesn't. That's not a mainstream. Opinion.
he didn't write it, but
I
he did
threw
say
it in just to give you the full picture. The mainstream that people are aware of, that everybody discusses, is the reason of number 1 and number 4. The Magen Avraham is not the first one to discuss why. Everyone discusses why there are 2 reasons. You see the Magen Avraham saying it's really 1 reason.
Why can't you say Yaakov said it and Moshe solidified it from the same source, the Malachim?
No, the idea is why we say it quietly. Why, no, there's 2 reasons. No, there's 2 reasons why we say it quietly. In number 1, we said it's because Moshe didn't say it. In number 4, we say it because it's stolen from the angels. It says in the Magen Avraham, Ha'anoach is the same thing. The reason Moshe didn't put it in the Torah is because he was keeping it under the table from the Malachim. All right.
Strange word to say stole it. I mean, why can't we just say he learned it from the Malachim?
Because he had no permission. No, according to the Tashbetz in number 2, Yankov also stole it, and therefore he kept it quiet. All right, okay. Oh boy, we got to go. Hell, we got to go. We're moving. Look in number 8. Right underneath is a Rambam. The Rambam. What does the Rambam say about this? In Hilchos Krishma, in the beginning, in the first perek, a few halachas in, the Rambam brings Boruch Shem, and he quotes the story from number 1 in Psachim about Now, of course, the Rambam doesn't say Yankov wanted to reveal when Mashiach was going to come. He leaves that out. He says Yankov was just bechal fabringing with his kids, and he asked them, do you really believe, etc., etc. Why the Rambam left out, So there's, the Rambam's a rationalist, he's not going to write, whatever. Okay, fine. There's different explanations why the Rambam left out that detail. But the fact is, the Rambam says in number 8, since Yankov said Baruch Shem, Lefichach nogu kol Yisrael. Very important word. The Rambam said it's a minik. In number 1, the Gemara says hiskinu. In number 1, the Gemara says they made a takana. Here the Rambam says minik to say Baruch Shem. And look how the Rambam words it. The minik is to say the praise sheshibach bo Yisrael hazaken achar pasuk zeh. We should say the same praise Yankov said. It's almost like the Rambam saying Baruch Shem really has nothing to do with Kriyishma. But because when Yankov responded to when his kids said Shema Yisrael with a beautiful praise of Baruch Shem, he wanted to do the same thing. It's almost like randomly injected. It's like, well, since Yankov did it, we're going to do it. But it's almost not really connected to Shema at all. The Rambam says minik, very strange thing. So the Brisker Rav, Reb Chaim Brisker's son, he has a well-known explanation. He has a famous question, which is like this. The Rambam, when it comes to mitzvahs of the Chachomim, is quite extreme. The Rambam believes anything the Chachomim tell you to do, even a custom, for sure, a mitzvah of the Chachomim, everything is backed up by the biblical command, Lo yisasur, you cannot depart from the words that the Chachomim tell you. The Ramban disagrees. The Ramban holds when the Chacham interpret the Torah, that's what's backed up by Lo yisasur, but not their own ideas, definitely not their own customs. The Rambam holds it's backed up by Lo yisasur. But here's the funny thing: the Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam have a big debate. Can you make a bracha on a minig? Rabbeinu Tam holds make a bracha on halal on Rosh Chodesh. Famous example. Asher k'deshanu b'mitzvayis v'tzivanu, and then you're doing a custom. How do you make a bracha? Exactly. The Rambam holds you can't. So comes the Brisker of I didn't get it. The Rambam, from all people, he holds that every minig is backed up by a biblical command. You got to follow the Chacham. And his punk, the guy that says you don't make a bracha on a minig. How does that make sense?
Only when it's a full halal we do bracha.
Because זה לא מנהג, זה תקנות חכמים. חצי זה מנהג, yeah. So, the Briskerov says like this. He says, as far as the person is concerned, you have the same obligation to follow the Chachamim's decrees and their customs as well. It's all backed up by the Pasuk Lo Yisasur that you can't depart from the ways of the rabbis. But as far as what you're doing, in his words, the cheftze, the item that you're doing, there's a difference if the item is a custom or the item is a mitzvah. And the act that you're doing it's categorized differently. As far as you have to treat them with the same respect, because God said, Lo Yisasur, you can't depart the ways of the rabbi. That's as far as the gaver, the person. As far as the act that you're completing, it's a different category. One was instituted as a mitzvah, one was instituted as a custom. That's the way the Chum decided to formulate it, right? And that's the framework, that's the description of it. It happens to be that Chachamim said, according to the Rambam, you only make a bracha when the item you're fulfilling is a mitzvah. As you see in the words of the bracha, Hashem commanded, b'mitzvayso v'tzivanu, the bracha was only enacted when the item that you are going to create is a mitzvah item, not if it's a minig item. That's what he says. So the Briskerov therefore says, pshat over here is, the Gemara says they were masakin, they made a takana. The Rambam said it's a custom. Said the Briskerov, the Rambam's understanding like this. Chacham said you have to do it. But the way they formulated it was to do is the cheftze, this item of Boruch Shem, they made it a custom item, not a mitzvah item. If you don't say it, you have to go back. If you don't say it, you have to go back. That's exactly what we're going to get to right now. It's just a minhag. It's a minhag.
So you don't say that you have to go back because it's a minhag or is it...
Yesh machloket im tzrichim lachzor olo v'nireh, but אם זה רק מנהג, זה יותר קל להבין שלא צריכים לחזור. זה רק מנהג, זה רק לכתחילה. אם זה ממש תקנה, צריכים לחזור, יש תקנות חכמים. But the Briskerov learns, that's the pshat. Based on his general theory that the Rambam holds, that the Chachamim would, when they tell you to do something, there's...
הוא אומר מנהג לא צריך לחזור. ואם זה תקנה, כן צריך לחזור. זה הפשטוס. אם זה מנהג. אם זה תקנה, לא, אז הוא מסביר.
זה מנהג, זה לא מן התורה.
בוודאי זה לא מן התורה, השאלה היא אם חכמים הם התקינו. אם הם תקנו את זה, נרות חנוכה זה תקנת חכמים. זה לא מנהג. אם לא הדלקת, אתה צריך להדליק. Okay. Look.
But you do go back.
We're going to, because we don't hold on to the Rambam. Okay. Hold on. Look at number 9. Comes Rabbi Yosef Kaira. Rabbi Yosef Kaira, number 9, in his Sefer Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam, he writes a whopper. It's one line. He says, "V'Rabbeinu lo nosan tam loma oimim oiseh balachash." The Rambam doesn't say why you do it quietly. He says, "The Boruch, who it's clear, hatam kedei lahavdul beinoi l'mashe kosev b'Torah." Says Rabbi Yosef Kaira, you know why you say Baruch Shem quietly? In order to openly distinguish that this is not biblical. Often we do. The reason we say Amen after by benching, right? We never say Amen after our own brachas, right? It's not appropriate to say Amen after you make your own bracha. In benching, calls Manshim Avarchim, we say Amen. Why? It's in order to make a hefsek between the part of benching, which is Minat Torah, and the part that's the Rabbanim. We blow shofar a whole Elul. We don't blow shofar Erev Rosh Hashanah. So one of the reasons is to confuse the Satan, but the halachic reason is to divide between what's a minig and what's a real mitzvah. So Rabbi Yosef Kaira is saying, and he creates this reason. I don't know if this reason was given before. I know the Levush says this as well after him.
There's other brachas also, like that, not our minute, but the Kashkarenu and...
To be
it's a series of brachas. When there's a series of brachas, you say Amen.
Right. Fine. So... the Yosef Kaira is giving a whole new reason. You know why you say it quietly? It's borur. It's to make a clear distinction. What's a custom and don't mix up custom with the real mitzvah. The Noida B'Yehuda once had a Talmud that went completely off, and he finally met up with him and he asked him, "You were a good bacher. What happened to you? Right? See, he says, Rebbe, it's he points his finger. So he said, at the Rebbe, he said, it's something that you said. Wait. So he tells the Rebbe that you were once speaking very firmly about certain minhagim and certain chumras, as if they were equal to basic halacha. And I knew that some of those hidurim I didn't keep, so I thought, you know what? I'm throwing in the towel completely. If it's all equal, then I don't do that. I'm not going to do anything. And the Rebbe couldn't believe it. And from then on, he says that he was careful that when he taught to make sure everything's in the right perspective of what is real halacha, what's just a minhag, it should be understood, right? No, you have. No, if someone grows up that wearing a hat and jacket is as important as wearing tefillin, so the moment they stop the hat and jacket, God forbid, God forbid, God forbid. Anyhow. What's Rabbi Yosef Kaira doing? The Rambam. Did he do it because Roman Yom Kippur? I don't know. But what's Rabbi Yosef? What's he giving a new reason for? As if we don't have enough reasons. Yeah. We don't have enough reasons.
Great reason.
Yankov did a choir. He stole from the Malachim. Moshe stole from the Malachim. Well, the fact we have all these reasons, and comes Rabbi Yosef Kaira from left field, and he says it's Boruch. It doesn't. He says, of course, the Rambam doesn't need to bring medrashim or gemaras. It's absolutely obvious. Really. Why is he looking for a new reason?
Rambam also would have a problem with going up to heaven and listening to this. No, that would be something.
No, so maybe. So why would Yosef Kaira?
Would that be something the Rambam would talk about?
No, well, the Gemara in Psachim is perfect. The Gemara in Psachim is rational. Yankov said it. The Rambam brings the story of Yankov. Moshe didn't say it. Quote the Gemara.
Of going to heaven.
Where's that story from? The Medrash doesn't bring the Gemara in Psachim.
No, but the Rambam wouldn't hold of that story.
That's no problem. The Gemara in Psachim is a self-contained reason.
Yeah.
The Rambam should say it's very rational. Yankov said it, Moshe didn't, so we say it quietly. He doesn't bring it. He doesn't bring it.
But the Rambam has a problem because he went to Egypt. He went down to Egypt.
And he used to write on his letters that he had 3 Averis every day.
The reason that the Rambam's and be the same thing. Moshe didn't say it.
Oh.
That's why it's a minute, and it's all related.
So I saw Reb Asher Weiss, right, big Rav today in Eretz Yisrael, one of the biggest poskim today, in all areas of Allah, is really phenomenal Talmud Chacham. So he wants to taina, like Mendel's saying, that Rabbi Yosef Kaira is not creating a new reason. This is how he, and perhaps the Rambam, understood the Gemara in Psachim. When the Gemara in Psachim says, Yankov said it, but Moshe didn't, like, were you going to offend somebody? So we said the Marsha and the Tzlach learn, right, that since Moshe didn't say it, it's like a hefsek. Right? You can't just stick. Moshe said you got to say Shema, which is from Echad to Vahavta. You're sticking in other things, right? So then, what do? You do it quietly. What, as if Moshe can't hear? Quietly should also be a hefsek. Like by the laws of hefsek, there's no difference of saying it out loud or quietly. Words are words. Words are words. And in addition, there's other shilas on that Marsha and the Tzlach. Many have a custom that before they say Shema, they say Keil Melech Ne'eman, because Shema is 245 words. You want to get 248. Why? Because you have 248 limbs. You want each word to correspond to another limb. So some would say Keil Melech Ne'eman.
Where do they say that?
Right before Shema. Right. So you listen to the Chazan say Shem Elokeichem Emes, or if you daven by yourself, you say Ani Hashem Elokeichem twice. There's a Rabbi Yonis and Eibush that says a pshat. There's a pasuk Va'atem Hadveikim Ba'Hashem Elokeichem Chayim Kulchem Hayom. He said like this: Atem is the letters of Emes. If Emes Hadveikim, Dveikim is connect. If you connect Emes LaHashem Elokeichem to the last words of Shema, then you'll get 248 words. Then Chayim Kulchem Hayom. Then every part of you will get life. All 248 limbs. Atem hadveikim. If you put the emes Hashem Elokeichem, you get the 248 words. Chaim kulchem. Every part of you will have chayes. So Al Kapanim, the Tur brings this minute to say Kel Melech Ne'eman before Shema, and you know what the Tur says? He says, I didn't get it. If saying Baruch Shem in middle, even though Yankov said it, but since Moshe didn't, the Gemara raises a problem. So how could you say Kel Melech Ne'eman, which came from no man's land? That's the Tur's question. Yeah, according to the Marsha and the Tzlach, what's the question? But there's no hefsek Kel Melech Ne'eman, it's before Shema. The whole issue of Baruch Shem, the way the Marsha and the Tzlach learn is It's not an issue that you're saying things Moshe didn't say. A whole day we say things Moshe didn't say. Right. It's that in middle of Shema, which Moshe said, you're sticking in other words. But what's the Torah extrapolating that would be an issue with Kel Melech Ne'eman before?
What do you mean it's not a hefzik? You're not going to make a hefzik to Avazalim and any of the brachas after Kriyashmas, after Birchas Kriyashmas.
No, okay. So the Torah should stam ask, you're making a hefzik between a bracha and what you're making a bracha on. But he's bringing a raya from the Baruch Shem. It's like apples and oranges. The Torah, you're right, the Torah could have asked his question innocently. Between the bracha and Shema, you're saying Kel Melech Ne'eman doesn't belong there. His whole question is bolstered and based on the Gemara about Moshe. You can't stick in random things in Shema. According to Mashor and the Tzlach, it's only in Shema. Before Shema, it's not. So what the Rebbe Asher Weiss wants to learn is that the way the Kesef Mishnah number 9 learns the Gemara is, here's the thing. There's a mitzvah to say Shema, right? Right? The mitzvah is Kriya Shema, to say words, V'shenantam, to say the words. We once had a whole shir that really, according to many, the soul of Shema is really a mitzvah of Talmud Torah. You should wake up in the morning, you should learn Torah. This is the parshas that we say, but it's really a mitzvah of learning Torah. It's a mitzvah of Kriya. It's a mitzvah of Kriya. It happens to be that what are we learning? What are we reciting? Words that carry Kabbalah, Sol, Malchus, Shemayim, right? Mitamol, we want to stick in Baruch Shem. Baruch Shem is not part of the Kriya. It's not what Moshe didn't say it. On the other hand, it's very much related to what we're doing, which is makabel on ourselves the yoke of heaven, right? What we're saying words of Torah, but we're specifically saying those paragraphs instead of other paragraphs because it has Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim. So the actual act of the mitzvah is the Kriya of Shema. What's Baruch Shem doing there? It's not part of the Chumash, doesn't belong there. But we're being makabel the yoke of heaven. Baruch Shem fits perfectly in that. So it's like the Gemara Shaila was, Moshe didn't say it, so it's not part of the Kriya. But Yankov said it, it's mamish part of Kabbalah Samachos Shemayim. So should we say it or not? Because in Kriya Shema there's two things going on. There's the Kriya of Shema, and it happens to be where, more than happens, it's very much selected to be the parashas of Kabbalah Samachos Shemayim. So the neshama of what we're doing, Baruch Shem belongs there. But the actual action of the mitzvah, lawful, legally, like as far as legal terms, Baruch Shem is random. So that's almost like Moshe didn't say it, so it's not part of the Kriya. Yankov said it, so it should be part of the Kabbalah Samachos Shemayim. So Rabbi Yosef Kaira therefore learns that what the Gemara's conclusion is, we're going to say it quietly, to show that it's not part of the main Kriya, it's not part of Moshe's thing, it's part of the Kabbalah Samachos Shemayim. So according to that, Rabbi Yosef Kaira is not making a new reason. This is how he and the Rambam are learning the Gemara. So, which tells us an incredible thing. Is Baruch Shem part of Shema? It is and it isn't at the same time.
Isn't it that like every time you say something about a tzaddik,
Zeichet tzaddik levracha,
and not only that, we see by the Alter Rebbe in Hayyim Yoims and all over the Rebbe's works when they reference Hashem and it's referencing him in a giant way, they always say afterwards
Yisbarach.
Yeah. So could it be that that's what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yes, Moshe is saying
it's like it's a random.
Human beings are now talking about the quintessential
right,
time
but
of referencing Hashem, like Yaakov.
Yeah, but correct. You can add some more flavor. It's not just since you mentioned God's name, it's appropriate to say Baruch Shem. It's really part of Shema. It is Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shemayim.
But there's a bigger problem. If you don't pause, then at the end, what you have is Echad from Kriyat Shema.
Okay. We're gonna get. Good. We're gonna get there right now.
Instead of Va'ed, you can say Va'ad. It's spelled the same way. So you're actually saying, God is one, but till when? So that's a big problem. That's why you have to say it quietly also.
Because it might sound like. So then you should scream a vo'ed, like usually when
exactly.
We should do the other way.
We should to the next part.
We should scream vo'ed. We should
exactly
say Baruch quietly.
So that
scream
nobody
vo'ed.
should misunderstand.
Exactly.
That it's forever, not limited.
I don't know. Have you? Yeah. Okay. Interesting point. Okay. Point taken. So with this we go. Let's go. I want to finish up.
To answer your question of why the question of why
that's why you said quietly.
Shema.
No. No, so according to this gang in Rabbi Yosef Kaira, the issue with Moshe and Yankee was never about the hefsek. It's not like the Marsha and the Tzlach. The issue is not about the hefsek. The issue is it's not part of the mitzvah of Kriyishma.
So that's why it is a good question of connecting the, what was the...
Yeah, exactly. Now the Torah makes sense. That the same way the Gemara said Moshe didn't say Baruch Shem, don't attach it to Shema, don't attach Kel Melech Neman. Because you're attaching it to get the 248 words. So if I get, according to this, the Torah makes a lot of sense with connecting the Kel Melech Neman to Baruch Shem. So here's the thing. Go to number 6. This is the Magen Avraham and the laws of Kriya Shema. Im loy amar Baruch Shem. What if you don't say it? Ein machzirin oisa. You don't go back. You don't go back. Really? Where's that from? Go to the next page quickly to number 10. I have the Bach over here. In the next page, number 10. Where this is the Bach who's on the tour. The tour says you say Baruch Shem. Kosav b'shiltei Giborim. The Shiltei Giborim lived about 500 years ago in Italy. In Perak Hayakira, it's in Brachas, the second Perak, he quotes in the name of Rabbi Yeshaya Achroin Zal, Piskei Riyaz. There was someone called Rabbi Yeshaya of Trani, who was known as the Tosfos Rid. Rabbi Yeshaya the Trani lived in Italy, and he had a grandson who had the same name, who's known as Rabbi Yeshaya the latter, Rabbi Yeshaya Achroin Zal, or the Riyaz. In the end of the 1200s he lived. About 1280 he died. Actually, yeah, both Rishonim. In fact, before the Zayda passed away, he said, Ben biti yoyreshaysi. You know what Avraham said in Lech Lecha, Eibishter, Ben basi yoyreshaysi, Eliezer is going to be Yeresh me. So this Rabbi Yeshaya said a play on words, Ben biti yoyreshaysi, the son of my daughter is going to Yeresh in my position. Because, no, in a good way. In other words, that his Einakul kept the legacy going. What happened, actually, he died young, because there was a great Kabbalist, Avraham.
Same name? He was alive at the same time with the same name? Or before he was born, he said this?
He was Fardim.
In Italy.
Sfardim?
In Italy. In the 1200s, early 1200s. What's Fardim? Tosfos, the Bali Tosfos. Tosfos Rid. Bali Tosfos, the Bali Tosfos.
So Taki, well, how could he...
Shai Jr., that's what they call him.
Okay. Maybe he was born after Zayda passed. Okay, interesting. I don't know. But we do know is Avraham Abulifia was a great Kabbalist. We once had a shir in the history of Kabbalah. We spoke about him. He was a very colorful fellow in the 1200s. He was the Rebbe of Yosef Gigatilia, who was the Rebbe of Moshe de Leon, who discovered the Zohar. And Avraham Abulifia was a colorful person. He was put in Chayrim. Abulafia. So he was put in Chayrim by the Rashba. It was he tried to convert the Pope, fascinating things. But he writes that when he came, he was a big Kabbalist, but he also loved the Moreh Nevuchim of the Rambam, which was unique. Usually the Kabbalists were not fans of the Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim. He actually wrote a pirush called Moira HaMoira, the guide of the guide, that he wrote on the Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim. And he came to Italy. He wanted to convert the Pope. The whole story. He was thrown in jail, and then the Pope died, and he managed to escape. A whole fascinating Maisa. But when he came to Rome, he wanted to teach the Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim through his, I guess, Kabbalistic glasses. And he says, I had 2 students in Rome. One of them was this Rabbi Yeshaya, and the other one was Rabbi Tzidkiah, the the Shibolei Haleket. And Avraham Abu Lafia says, they both died shortly after I started teaching them. Yeah.
What did you say? Siman, stop.
Yeah. Anyhow, but Rabbi Yeshaya says like this: V'nira be'eina, it seems to me. Okay, he's saying this 750 years ago in Italy. She'im loy amra, if you don't say Baruch Shem, ein machzir, don't worry about it, don't sweat. The time of what's his reason, says the Bach, because Kriya Shema, which is biblical, lo yatzedei chavasem l'amar, you have to say it. Baruch Shem eino elo takana. It's only a takana. He doesn't even say minig like the Ram. It's only a takana because Yankov said it. All right, ein machzirin oiseh. Even though he said it's a takana, he says no, because Yankov said it. All right, so lechatchila. But if you don't do it, no sweat. Go back to the other page in number 6. So the Magen Avraham quotes the Bach. And the Shin Gimel is the Shiltei Giborim, who quotes this Rabbi Yeshaya Achron. But the Levush Kosav, no, the Levush says fakert. Afilu Amra, even if you said Baruch Shem, and you didn't say Bekavana Tzarech Lachser. The Levush says the opposite. If you say it, but you didn't have intention, kavana, you have to go back.
What if you said Shema?
So for sure, if you didn't say it
If you said Shema
at all,
without kavanah, you also have to go.
yeah.
But isn't that
What?
a little bit of a delicate problem? Because after all, you said immediately after Shema, so now you have to repeat Shema?
Okay, hold on.
Yes,
Reb
wait a minute. If you
Chaim
didn't
no
say
has a big
it,
shayla. No, there's a
and you
shayla.
start,
When
then
you go
to
back,
Shema,
it depends. Hold on. You know, I want to finish that. It depends if Shema and Baruch Shem is one package deal or not.
That's
Hold on. We're going to have a little analysis of that, and then we're going to finish up. Hold on.
Good question.
So the truth is,
2 points.
there's actually a very strange Mishnah. The Mishnah Brura has a very strange opinion on this. The Mishnah Brura holds if you said Baruch Shem and you didn't have in mind, you have to go back. He paskins like the Levush. But he also paskins like the Bach, that if you don't say it, don't worry about it.
How come?
Hold on, could you imagine such a psak? The Mishnah Brura says, he paskins like both of them. He says, he goes like the Levush, if you said it, you didn't have in mind, go back. If you didn't say it, don't worry. So how could that make any sense? How does it make it? So he explains himself in his Biur Halacha. No, how can it make any sense, yeah? Hold on, I'll tell you what he says. He says like, no, it depends. If you say echad, right? If you said Baruch Shem and you didn't have kavana, so where are you holding now? You said vo'ed, you're about to say vahafti, like, oh wow, did I just say Baruch Shem? I said it, but I didn't have it in mind. You go back, like the Levush. But if you skipped it, where are you holding now? You must have started via hafta, or else you didn't skip it yet. That's the difference.
Right.
He says, one, if you skipped it, then you already started via hafta. You know what he said? No, but you know what he says even stranger? Say it wherever you remember.
That makes sense, because you're saying it anyways after.
He says, don't go back, say it wherever you remember. I remember Moshe Feinstein has a big issue with this Mishnah Brura, but the Mishnah Brura, he wants to paskin like both of these things. If you skip it, it means you already started via hafta, or else you haven't skipped it yet. So then, don't worry about it. Say it. He says, say it where you remember, and if you didn't remember, don't worry about it. But if you didn't have in mind, it's talking about you didn't start via hafta yet, and you realize you just said it without having in mind. That's how these two. But the Alter Rebbe disagrees. The Alter Rebbe seems to hold if you're saying Vahoya and you realize you didn't have in mind Baruch Shem, you'd have to go back.
Makes no sense.
So then, for sure, if you skip it, right?
Why am I going back to say Baruch Shem just a minute, or maybe a takana to go and redo a whole Shema?
Yeah. What are you going to do? Say it where? Say it where?
Either say it right where you remember it. The same. What's the
In the middle, no. In the middle, you don't want
to.
Maybe you would say it between the parshias, but you go back. No, you go back. You go back. Oh, so here's the thing. Hold on. Give me a moment. So the Magen Avraham said, "V'chein mashme reish siman samach vav." The Magen Avraham wants to go like the Levush, that Baruch Shem. And the Mishnah Brura is an interesting. Most disagree with the Mishnah Brura. Most say these two dinim do not work together. Like you see, the Magen Avraham says, Levush says afilu. Even if you didn't have in mind, you have to go back for sure. If you didn't say it, yeah, you see how the Magen Avraham presents it. But what's his raya from Siman Samach Vav? Look at number 7. Bein aprokim, if you're middle of the brachas of Shema or Shema, if you're in between the paragraphs, you could be shoyel b'sholom adam nichbet. You could ask the welfare of anyone who's a honorable, respected person, and you could respond l'chol adam. If you're be'emt, if you're middle of a brach or in middle of a paragraph of Shema, it's a stage more serious. Shoyel, you could only ask b'sholom mishu yorim imenu. You could only ask from someone that you're afraid of, like your father, your teacher, or someone who's a sage, someone who's gadol mena b'chachma, and for sure if it's a king or an anas or a member of the mafia. Umeishiv shalom la'adam nichbed. So, in middle of a paragraph of Shema or middle of a brach of Shema, to begin a conversation, it has to be an element of respect and fear. But to respond, you could respond to anyone who was adam nichbed, anyone who's has a bit of kavod. Va'afilu be'emtza, even middle of the pasuk, except for Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem. Shelo yafsik b'emchal, nothing at all, unless the guy's going to blow your brains. Im loy mipnei she'yorim minish, I get the guy pushing with a gun going to kill you. This is Rabbi Yosef Kaiver in the Shulchan Aruch. Hold on. But wait, what about between Shema and Baruch Shem? He says, except if you're in middle of Shema and Baruch Shem. In other words, in a regular pasuk of Shema, in the middle of the pasuk, you can ask the welfare of anyone that you're Yoreh, that is Yira, or respond to anyone of Kavod, except if you're in the middle of Shema or Baruch Shem. What if you're between Void and Boruch? He doesn't say. But in the Beis Yosef, which is his Pirush on the Tur, he says even there you can't. Rabbi Yosef Kaira holds Shema and Baruch Shem is really one package. It's really one package.
Yeah, it's the way you write it. Shema ben Baruch Shem. Right.
Okay, also look on the next page. In the Alter Rebbe, there's a big puzzle. In the Alter Rebbe, there's a bit of a puzzle about this. Because look at number 13. The Alter Rebbe says, Kol mokum shemurtu lahafsik be'emtza perek. Whenever you could be mafsik in middle, it's mutter even middle of the pasuk, except for the pasuk of Shema. Don't be mafsik at all, unless you're scared the guy's going to kill you. And so to Baruch Shem, shegam hu bichlal hayichud. Baruch Shem is also being miyachid Hashem. And then he says, umitam zeh ein lahafsik gam kein bein Shema leBaruch Shem. In the Shulchan Aruch, it's not black and white clear. The Shulchan Aruch says, except for Shema and Baruch Shem, maybe it means in the middle of each one independently, but lav dafka between Echad and Boruch. The Alter Rebbe adds even between Echad and Boruch. Now, where does he get it from? He gets it from Rabbi Yosef Kaira, not from what he wrote in the Shulchan Aruch, from what he wrote in his big sefer, the Beis Yosef. But that means the Alter Rebbe is going all the way that in between Void and Boruch is more serious than in the middle of a different pasuk of Shema, because this is mamish one package. Mamish one package. All right. So look how strange this is. Look in number 11. Number 11, the Alter Rebbe says, "Va'af mi she'einu ma'irich b'dalet shel echad." If you're not ma'irich in the dalet of echad, yesh lo lahafsik mat. You have to make a division between echad and baruch. Remember, we started off the shir between a debate between the Tur and the Rekeach and Avud Raham. The Tur holds you only make a division between void and v'yahavta. Between echad and baruch, the Tur holds it's one package deal. You don't make a hefsik. And we said the Shulchan Aruch holds like that too. But we said the Rekeach, and we mentioned that Amok quotes the Avud Raham, and the Alter Rebbe goes with that opinion. No, you have to be massive between Shema and Baruch. They're not the same thing. Iker Kabbalah Malch Shema is Pasuk Rishon, and you should be massive beinoy lebein shar dvarim. No, lo chazak klal. The Alter Rebbe holds it's not a package deal. The Alter Rebbe says fakert. You have to be mafsik, time, like take a breath, between void, between echad and baruch. Hold on. No, wait. Okay, זה לא שיטת מרן בית יוסף.
לא, אבל זה לא אמרתי שזה שיטת מרן בית יוסף, זה מה שאנחנו עושים. I just told you that, that's what we're doing. I didn't say...
אתה הולך לפי פסקיו של מרן או לפי אלתר רבי? אתה הולך לפי פסקיו של מרן בית יוסף או לפי אלתר רבי? זה השאלה. Okay, fine. Anyway, okay, enough. Okay, so...
הוא נראה כאילו בית יוסף, אבל לפי אלתר רבי.
Ben Porat Yosef Yitzchak. This is the... The Alter Rebbe goes, not with the Tur. Rabbi Yosef Kair in the Tur hold, you don't make a division between Echad and Baruch. Okay, we say if you're Ma'irich in the Echad, that may count. But if someone's not Ma'irich in the Echad, it's fine. You don't have to make a hefsek between Echad and Baruch. That was the opinion of the Tur and Rabbi Yosef Kaira. The Rekeach, the Avud Raham, the Ramah, and the Alter Rebbe hold no. Between Echad and Baruch, you need to make a division because they're not the same thing. Because Iker Kabor Mar Shemaim is the first pasuk, and you should be mafsek between Kabor Shemaim and other things. That idea of Kabor Shemaim and other things was the idea of the Anshe Yerichai. You have to divide between Echad and V'yahavta because one is receiving the yoke of heaven and one is relating Hashem's mitzvahs. But between Echad and Baruch, this is a whole different part of stew. Beinoy l'shar dvarim. What does it mean? You should be massive between Shema l'shar dvarim. Baruch Shem is shar dvarim. It's kabbalah malchus shemayim. To the point that in number 13 he said that between Echad and Baruch is so interconnected. It's very strange. Look at number 12. Number 12. Here the Alter Rebbe said tzarich lahafsik ma'at between Baruch Shem and V'ahavta. You have to be mafsik also between void and V'ahavta. Why? To be master between Kabbalah's Malchus Shemaim, the Shar Mitzvahs. Mitamo Baruch Shem is Kabbalah's Malchus Shemaim. Because Shema and Baruch Shem is Kabbalah. Where Makabal, the Eibush, is Malchus. And Vahavtu, the Tzavo, is a command. So here the Alter Rebbe says, which everyone agrees with, that, because this is the Anshe Yerichai business, that between Makabel, the yoke of God, versus relating Hashem's mitzvahs, you have to make a division. So Baruch Shem is part of Shema. But then between the two of them, you're mafsik as well.
The first part where the Alter Rebbe writes that it's a difference between Baruch Shem and Shar Narim.
No, between Shema, in number 11.
The first part of number 11, there's a difference between Shema and Baruch Shem. So you make absolute.
But what does it? Yeah, okay.
It's one thing, but it's.
Why? It's the same thing. Kabbalah. Why should you make a hefsek? For what reason?
Yeah.
For what reason? Why should you make a hefsek? Okay. So I'll pick Siddur is under. Okay, hold on. Look at number 14. Hold on. Number 14. What's the Alter Rebbe's opinion? So the Alter Rebbe writes in number 14, if you said Shema v'loy chiven libo, you didn't pay attention to what you were saying, to the meaning. In the first pasuk, or Baruch Shem, tzarich lachzor v'likrois, and you have to go back. Not like the Bach and Rabbi Yeshaya and the Shilta Geberim, no. It's like the Levush and the Magen Avraham. The Alter Rebbe holds you have to go back. And even those that say the mitzvahs don't need kavanah, that's something else. That's when you do a mitzvah, do you have to be aware that you're doing a mitzvah? And there's a debate if you have to be aware or not. But here's something else. Here we're talking about focusing on the words that you're saying. Here, im loy kiven liba, you're not yotzim in HaTorah. In HaTorah. That only works by Shema. Baruch Shem is just is not a deraisa. Yet the Alter Rebbe throws in Baruch Shem was given the same din as Shema Yisrael, and you would have to go back. You would have to go back. So on the one hand, the Alter Rebbe says very clearly, whatever dinim Shema has, Baruch Shem has. By the way, you cover your eyes by Shema, right? You cover your eyes by Baruch Shem? Yeah. It's in the Kisvei, Reb Chaim Vital writes, that the Arizal writes, and Gamma Ben Ish Chai Posek, you're supposed to cover your eyes till void. Till void, also Baruch Shem. So why do you cover your eyes?
We don't cover our eyes.
Doesn't mention about Baruch Shem.
No, you're saying
Arizal did it. Hold on. Why not? Well, why do you cover your eyes by Shema? Why do you cover your eyes by Shema? You cover your eyes. So some Rishonim say it's because by Shema your eyes are supposed to dart in all directions. So that's why Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi would cover his eyes, so people shouldn't look at him. So that you do in Shema, not in Baruch Shem. You don't move your eyes in Baruch Shem. So that would be no reason to cover in Baruch Shem. But the Alter Rebbe says the reason you cover your eyes is that you shouldn't be distracted by what you see. You need to focus. The Alter Rebbe holds in number 14 the same kavanah you need by Shema, you need by Baruch Shem. And the reason you cover your eyes is to have kavanah. Or unless you say it like this. If you don't have kavanah by Shema, you're violating a Torah dika mitzvah. If you don't have kavanah by Baruch Shem, what are you violating? Takanas chachamim. So the concern is if you don't cover your eyes, you'll be distracted. Ma kulahai. It could be that by Baruch Shem, worst comes to us if you get distracted. You're no. You're losing out on takanas chachamim. You're not going to lose out, but you're not losing out on deraisa.
That means you shouldn't cover your eyes.
I'm giving a reason why maybe you don't cover Baruch Shem.
Not addressed.
But
anywhere,
if Lididi Talia Milsa,
not addressed anywhere clearly, what's the minute?
By Lubavitch?
No, but
It's not brought that you have to. It's not brought. People don't. But if you want to know what the Arizal did, and forget it, by learning the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe number 14 seems to say Baruch Shem and Shema have the same din. There's a din when you're walking, right? If you're allowed to say Shema while you walk, not the first pasuk. Yeah. What about Baruch Shem? So the Alter Rebbe is going to hold it applies to Baruch Shem. Whatever applies to Shema applies to Baruch Shem. So if the reason you cover your eyes is not to be distracted, just like the reason is while you're walking to stop is to be able to focus, you cover your eyes by Baruch Shem. Hey, but the point is that the inconsistency over here is on the one hand, the Alter Rebbe holds and Mamash has the same din. That's what he says in 14. You have to have kavanah. In number 13, he says between Echad and Baruch, you're in the middle of a set. You can't stop unless a guy's pasha going to put a bullet, God forbid. And that's why you have to pause between void and v'yahavta, because you're leaving Kabbalah's oil onto mitzvahs. And then he says in number 11, he goes like the Avud Raham and the Rekeach, between Echad and Baruch, mitamol. You have to make a hefsek. You should know the Chida. The Chida quotes from. He quotes from the Ramemi Panu. The Ramemi Panu disagrees with the Alter Rebbe number 13. The Ramemi Panu holds between Echad and Boruch, you're allowed to be mafsik to respond to people It's taka not one thing. But the Alter Rebbe goes like Rabbi Yosef Kaira, it's one thing. So then he should go like Rabbi Yosef Kaira, who disagrees with the Rekeach.
No, he is going to.
He's mixing the...
Look at number 7.
Rabbi
Yosef Kaira brings in, the language he uses is Shema Vid Baruch Shem. It is exactly the same
No, that's
thing.
fine. No, yeah, but you know why he holds that?
But the only thing the Alter Rebbe does is he parses it out. Because you yourself said that he gets it from Rabbi Yosef Kaira, which means he's saying the exact same thing.
Because Rabbi Yosef Kaira is Lishitasa, which gets consistent.
Yes.
Because he holds you don't make a hefsek between Void and
All
Baruch.
the doing is opening up Rabbi Yosef Kaira and parsing out Baruch Shem, what exactly it is. So Shema is Shema. Baruch Shem is the same thing because we have to, when we say Shema, we have to say Baruch Shem.
Yeah, but why do you make a hefsek?
Is it the exact same thing? No, because
cares?
one is Minat Torah, but it's the
No, that's not the reason. The reason he says because it's not real. No, he doesn't.
All he's saying
He does not bring the kesef. No.
And how do you know that Yosef Kaira doesn't say Va'ed is the mafsik that you need? The long dalit at the end, according to Yosef Kaira,
because
which means he would
because
be exactly the same
according
as
to
the
Yosef Kaira, if you aren't Ma'arich in the Echad, you
We don't know.
For sure.
That what? That you have to go back.
No, according to Yosef Kaira, if you weren't Ma'arich in the Echad, you can still go straight to Baruch Shem. He holds it's one package. The Alter Rebbe holds it's a different package, but he takes the other din of Yosef Kaira, that between Echad and Baruch, you're mamish middle, not like the Rameh Mipanu.
Right, so
it's
then
inconsistent.
He's holding, like Rabbi Yosef Kaira,
So
he's just parsing it out a little bit more.
Then it's inconsistent.
And
So
how,
I think the pshat's like this. In Chassidus we explain.
We are
What's
not
the
in the
difference?
court.
No. So what's the word? There's two types of unifications of the Eibishter with the Welt, with the world. Yichudi law is the way the Eibishter looks at it. Yichud Tata is the law the way we look at it. A simple mashal is the way a ray of sun is inside the ball of the sun. It's there, but it's what we call bottle b'mitzid. It has no existence. It's completely nullified to its source. The ray of sun, once it exits the sun and it shines, right? So you have rays of sun all around. They're not the sun; they're rays of the sun, but they're completely dependent on the sun. The sun shuts off, the rays shut off. The source. That's called bitul hayesh, meaning they have a mitzias, they have an existence, but their yeshes, their independence is bottle, because they realize that they're completely dependent on something else. When the ray of sun is inside the ball of the sun, it's not even existence at all. That's bitul b'mitzias. The mitzias itself is nullified. The way the Eibishter looks at it is all the creations are inside of him. They don't. It's almost like, what do I have over here? Right now, it's just me. Now, there's me and a triangle? No. It's just me. It's just me. The worlds all exist inside of God, but all they are, it's just like a ray of sun inside the sun. That's how the Eibishter looks at it. Yichud ilah. And when we say Shema Yisrael, we're saying it from the Eibishter's perspective. Echad, all there is the oneness of Hashem, nothing else. Baruch Shem is our perspective. When we're a creation, we feel that we exist, but we understand we're completely dependent on Hashem. We're like the ray of sun outside the sun, but realizes it only exists because the sun emanates it. So we feel an existence, but we feel completely dependent on the Eibishter. That's Baruch Shem. We speak of Hashem as a king, that He rules over us, He gives us all of our sustenance. That's Baruch Shem. It says in Shmuel, Kel Deis Hashem, the Eibishter is a God of different knowledges. So in Chassidus it says that both of these yichudim, both of these unities are true. In other words, the Eibishter appreciates the lower unity the way we see it. The fact that Hashem sees that nothing exists besides Himself, shkoyach. The kunz is, the subtlety and the nuance that the Eibishter is waiting for is, once a creation feels its existence, will it still be able to feel that it's completely dependent on me? Or maybe the moment it feels its own existence will completely separate itself. So the magic trick that the Eibishter is waiting for is that even when we feel that we exist, we still feel completely dependent on Him. And the Eibishter appreciates that. And both of these unities therefore are true. Our perspective is not just an illusion. It's fakert, it's the creation the Eibishter was creating everything for, the purpose of everything. It's the ultimate kunz. So Shema and Baruch Shem are both crucial. They're both crucial. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe is not going to hold like the Rameh Mipan, will hold like the Rabbi Yosef Kaira. Between Echad and Boruch, you can't be mafsik for anything. These two unities are crucial.
Can't say one without
On the other hand,
from
one's God's, one's ours. So you have to be mafsik.
So from our perspective, you can't say one without the
If you
other.
forget Baruch Shem, you begin from Shema or Baruch Shem.
Right?
What?
If you forget Baruch Shem,
If you forget,
Now I understand why
you
they
should probably
call
go
Baruch
back to
Shem.
Shema.
Shema.
Probably Shema. Probably Shema.
Shema, because
It's all one thing. Yeah, yeah.
What happens if you don't
It doesn't make sense in a way.
How do we say Hashem's name without